Hi everybody, welcome to episode 17 of A Fern Between Us.
I want to remember my lines.
Try to, baby.
We are two of the four owners of Vivoc Winery. I'm Jesse.
The one that you really shouldn't forget.
Which one am I? I'm Jesse.
I'm Michelle.
And you go ahead.
Yeah, no, today we are doing a little focus on Cabernet Sauvignon, the grape. It is going to be a showcase of this grape in a miniature version around the world. When I teach a class like this, I usually like to have 6. With it just being Jesse and I at home and a short segment here, that could get really messy and go on way too long. So we are going to do a little check-in and then we'll get to the tasting. How are you doing? Any news? Any updates?
No new news. It's nice and hot out there. No rain yet, but I feel like we may get it starting today. Summer monsoons, you know. Other than that, I don't know. I'm doing all right. Yourself?
I spent the morning highly agitated, but I'm trying to calm down, and I spent the rest of the day off of social media and reading the threads of some interesting things. So
it's always a bad idea to read the comment section of anything, especially if it's a subject you care about.
Yeah, so that's been interesting. So I had to take a little break, but welcome everybody. Hopefully you're having a better day, and as always, we can't comment as you guys throw out your questions, but afterward we do read all of these and comment and figure out answers for questions. Like last week there were a couple of questions for the teacher that we had on, and so if you go back to that comment thread again, I've actually updated it with some answers to some of those questions that were in there, so that's kind of cool. So yeah, I need a drink.
All right.
So
what do we...
let's get started.
Let's get started. Obviously, one of these Cabernets is ours.
Yes. So we have our Cabernet. We have a Napa Cabernet because, of course, Napa's pretty much the king of cabs in the United States. Not to say that...
And the New World, I would say. I mean, everywhere grows Cabernet, by the way. Everywhere grows Cabernet. I don't care if
and
you're
making
talking about...
phenomenal Cabernets, by the way, too.
Right. I mean, it's a contributor to all the best, the Super Tuscans. It's part of that blend. It's part of the, anything that's out of the norm in the old world is usually using Cabernet and Merlot.
And all throughout the Americas.
All the New World spots, they're all growing a decent amount of Cabernet.
Texas has some pretty good Cabernets that we've come across, yeah.
We just love Cabernet.
Yeah, everybody does. It's one of those that are, you can rely on a certain type of wine when you order it in a restaurant, no matter where it's from. So that's always nice for the consumer. So again, people they know Napa, they love Napa, so of course we had to have one of those. And then we have a Bordeaux, a left bank Bordeaux, which is generally speaking a blend, but cab heavy in most respects. So it's gonna be a little bit different, but that's kind of the birth of the love affair with Cabernet. So we had to include that, right? So
which one are we going to taste first, and then I'll get back to the Bordeaux question, or maybe I'll get back to the Bordeaux when we taste the Bordeaux.
I think that's a good call. Okay, so we're going to start actually with the Vivoc.
Hey, that's ours. I know this one. Oh yeah.
So I was kind of thinking we'd smell through them. This is always a really informative thing if you haven't done this before. If you have, try it with 3. If you feel like you can splurge and open 3 bottles and smell them, comparing them down the line, because it's so fascinating to have them side by side so that you can really smell the differences, comparisons.
That's always how Chris and I make the blends too. We smell all the wines and then we taste all the wines, whether we're talking about all the wines that we're going to possibly blend or just the different blends that we've already made for a certain potential wine that we're going to make. We always smell them, think about it, talk about it, see what they're missing on the nose, see what they're do great on the nose. Talk like we vocally talk about it. We make some notes sometimes we don't, and then we taste through it. And often the tasting part will change how we felt about the nose.
Well, that's so true.
Yeah.
There's sometimes that you smell a wine and you think, oh, wow, this is going to be amazing. And then it falls flat on the palate and you're like, meh,
for whatever reason.
That was lackluster.
Yeah.
All
Or
right,
sometimes
so-
the palate's amazing. But anyway, yeah, go ahead.
So your Cabernet, this is the current vintage, which is a 2017. Aged in French oak.
Mm-hmm.
All of these wines, actually, I believe, are aged in French oak too. I tried to keep them at least somewhat similar.
Similar
And price range.
and similar price
Yeah.
point. Okay.
So this is just, this fruit's grown in southern New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of my favorite wines that we make here, actually.
Mm-hmm.
It's $24 a bottle, and I feel like it always comes in as a much bigger heavy hitter in the wine price range than it's actually priced at. I feel like it's a really good bargain. It's a solid wine. It's exactly what you're looking for in Cabernet.
I feel like it too, and that's one of the things that I feel the very best about what we're doing and stuff when we get people that are so used to shopping in California. We get Californians in the tasting room, and they're like, "Your Cabernet is only $24, and it tastes as good." Like, and they just like hands down, that's a great deal. That's a great deal. And I'm like, because sometimes 24 sounds like a lot to people that don't drink wine all the time, or if you always shop the $10 rack, it's hard to splurge $24 on a bottle of wine. That includes us. That's what we we shop the bargain rack often, and 24 is a lot of money. I totally understand that, but to hear that from people that are used to California and California prices, and they're known for their Cabernets and they love our Cabernet, and the price they say that's amazing. You can't find that in Cal. I'm like, all right, there we go.
Yeah,
I feel like we're on the right track.
I completely agree. So the next wine, I was kind of going to do like a quick,
Okay.
through the line,
Yeah.
and then we can talk more about which one, but that way we can kind of have a fresh comparison.
Sounds good.
So the next one is the Bordeaux. I had hoped to find a more esteemed chateau to have in this tasting, but it is COVID. It's really hard to find a place that's fully stocked these days. So I actually was able to find a really great Bordeaux at Del Norte Liquor in Taos. That's a fabulous store. Please support them. And she feels like this is a great bargain.
It's an unassuming place from the outside. You probably wouldn't go in there just naturally thinking you're going to find great wines, but they've got a great little wine section that's pretty incredible, actually.
And also, that's like Coco Man. You actually drive up and you're like, oh God, I'm not getting out of the car.
Am I going to get shot? No, but also they've got a great wines, which is weird. Mm-hmm. This has a little bit of the the cheap wine mass-produced flavor, a little bit, but not overly so. I agree with her that it's right in there. Ria's doing great.
Yeah, not being
it's not super typical for old world style exactly, but
it's got some of that nuances of the earthy context, but definitely not more so than yours. Oh wow! If you go backwards. This smells like prosciutto.
Oh wow, yeah, it's got a lot of the
umami.
I was gonna say, just for reference, how much was this?
This was actually on sale. Should I say the sale price or?
No, the standard price.
So $20.
Okay.
And she's trying to move wine, so I always like that. Yeah. And that's also how we bought the Napa wine that we're about to talk about too. I shop deals, and you should too. And so, if you're shopping through us, I highly recommend that you do a mix and match of a case of wine. There's notes on all of our wines on our website, and then we pay for the shipping, and you get a 10% discount.
Yep.
That's how I shop off of everybody else's website too.
Or join the wine club, and then you can get up to 25% off with free shipping. Up to. Eventually you get there once you've bought 3 cases, but then you're there.
Yes, because it's a tiered program.
Right,
We're one of the
exactly.
only tiered programs for our wine club. Actually, I didn't anticipate doing a whole spiel about it, but
Right.
because that is something that we are collecting the number of bottles that you buy. The longer you're with us, the more you purchase, you actually get further discounts and incentives and things, so that if you are around here, you can get a free glass of wine, free tastings when we open back up and have normal business. Anyway, all right, so then we're going to jump into the Napa Franciscan. Franciscan's one of my favorite Napa Valley wineries because it's just so typical, exact of every varietal that I looked to have produced in Napa, and they do a really good job, and I like their price point. They have really solid wines at a friendly price point. So this is 22.
You can spend as much as you want up there as well. But
Yeah, if you want to spend a couple $100 on one of their cabs, go for it. You will love it.
Nice big fruit, nice Napa flavor, you know. I mean, it's
Very bold, very chocolatey.
chocolatey. There's a lot of tannins in there. A lot of tannins. Not overly oaked, like you can find sometimes. I feel like the oak is really integrated. I feel like I like it. I mean, I love it.
Yeah. I feel like these are three really solid, similar wines, which I think is so interesting. Because
they're very similar. Yeah.
You know, sometimes we do this, we play this game, and you're like, whoa, we like to do this with our staff too, and we taste everything blind, and then have people try to decide or guess which one is ours, and so that's always fun. And this is so similar, I'm surprised.
Yeah.
All right, so do you want to talk to us about Bordeaux?
Yeah, so Bordeaux is the birthplace of Cabernet. First, let me tell you, Cabernet's parents are Sauvignon Blanc and Cabernet Franc.
How cool is that?
It happened in a spontaneous mutation. I can't remember, maybe early 1700s. Sometime in there. Before that, there was no such thing as Cabernet. But there was Bordeaux. And Bordeaux got its start about 2,000 years ago. The Romans founded it. It's France's largest grape growing region. And about in the 1100s, I can't remember if it was early, mid, or late, but in the 1100s.
Right? That's always fun. Tell us all about it.
Right? They, England, through a marriage, got control over Bordeaux. And it was all like kingdoms and stuff like that at that point. So all of Bordeaux wine went to England, and England drank nothing but Bordeaux wine, and they had bad water at the time. So for 200 years, they basically owned Bordeaux and sculpted what became the Bordeaux style. Because the English homes were so cold, there's all the, think all back to like all the, for one, it's 1,000 years ago, so it was a little colder.
Global warming.
and they had the old stone homes and all that stuff. So everything was super cold, and so you can't taste anything when it's super cold. Room temperature. That's when you're supposed to drink wine at room temperature. Well, not like 80 degrees like us, or 75 degrees, or like we keep our homes or whatever. But you're supposed to drink it at 60, 65 degrees, like an English home would be called, would normally be, or whatever. Anyway, the water was bad back then. They had to be worried about it, and so for 200 years, every man, woman, and child basically drank over 2 gallons of wine a day, and it all came from Bordeaux.
So you guys probably can relate to this because that's about what it's like in COVID. Pandemic, lockdown. Yeah. We're drinking about 2 gallons a day.
But then the 100 Years' War happened. France got it back, but it styled Bordeaux wines so they
because
boosted,
it was so cold. They kept asking for it to be bolder and bolder and bolder. So then it became one of the most bold wines. But in France at the time, Burgundy was really where they felt the best wines were being made. So it's an interesting thing. So for a long time, the French actually didn't really like Bordeaux.
Yeah. They kind of, you know, Burgundians look down on the Bordeaux's. They're like, yeah, boo, you guys, boo, so lame, whatever.
I think Burgundians. What do you call them?
Burgundians.
No, I know. Before that.
Burgundians.
Yeah, Burgundians. I like that.
Anyway, they tend to. All right, so they got 5 main grapes. Cabernet is the dominant grape on the left bank, the southern bank of the Bordeaux River, heading into, and then the dominant grape on the right bank is Merlot,
which a lot of people don't know.
Yeah.
Hence the subtle joke in the movie Sideways.
Oh,
that
yeah.
you should go back and revisit now that you've got that little key to really figure out what's going on in that movie. All right, anything about Napa that you would like to talk about? Because we've got some very interesting questions.
Napa is just a great place for growing Cabernet, among other things. They tend to be the New World center of Cabernet growth. That's the thing that they do the best is the Cabernets. I mean, I don't know. It's gonna be generally way fruitier than the Bordeaux. Bordeaux is gonna be just, you know, super complex, but less on the fruit.
Yeah, absolutely. So
all
New
Cabernets
World, focusing on that big bold fruit. Old World is focusing on the earthier kind of content to the wine.
All Cabernets are gonna be generally up there with the biggest style of wine coming from a place and have high tannins. It's just an all around. It's the classic red wine flavor. If you think of red wine, you're thinking of one of these pretty much. And Merlot has a pretty similar flavor profile. It's just everything's toned down a little bit. That's about the only difference. We try to make our wines in a kind of a crossover. We're trying to be more old world than most of the New World wines.
And boy, does this really show that.
And Franciscans, they're pretty old world compared to most of Napa, I would say.
Well, right. I mean, but you're also looking at, like, this is the $22 version, and when you get into their really hefty priced wines, those do get more bold, and then you are looking at comparisons to, you know, like Opus One and Stag's Leap, and you know, those iconic Napa cabs that, you know, if you want to invest in that, it will blow your socks off. But you know, most of us can't, especially now. So.
Or go to a festival where you can taste from a bunch of different tables, and maybe you can get in.
You can't go to a festival anymore, but that's a great idea.
Try that. Oh man!
All right, before we jump into questions, I do want to say that I am just really impressed with how well the Vivac has held up. I mean, that sounds like a jerk statement, but I love our wines, but I try also to not be partial.
Try the same thing at your home. You know, get
similar prices though.
Yeah, you always have to go with similar prices. If you don't, then it's gonna be, you know. But I think you'll see. I think we stand up pretty well almost every time, and that's been our goal. That's why our prices aren't $40, even if we could get it. Sometimes we don't try to do that if we don't think it stands up on the market.
Absolutely. And so I feel like I'm always saying this, but like judging at international wine competitions, I do feel like it's really important to bring that same analytical mindset to when I'm tasting the Vivac wines, and not just simply be, you know, enamored with what Jesse and Chris do because I'm part of the family, and I do, you know, market the wine, so of course I'm supposed to say that kind of thing. But in this sort of situation, I feel it's really, really important that I am very, very brutally honest, and sometimes that's not so fun, but he loves me anyway. But so I feel like that's a very accurate, true statement in that these are very, very similar.
Was $22 the sale price or the
No, that's the actual price.
Actual price, okay.
The sale price, because they were having a super duper flash sale, was $15.
COVID sale, nice.
Yeah.
All right.
But the thing that is different is I do get so much more umami, and I love that. That's one of my gigs. So my personal taste really lends towards this. Okay, so are you ready for some questions?
She's been teasing me all day that she's got a good one.
These are all good, and thank you so much for sending in all of your questions. And
I'm actually kind of scared.
yeah, so it's going to be an interesting Q&A today. But we're going to start with some good, like solid ones before we throw one that's a doozy.
Okay.
All right. So the first question is, why are there two different shapes of champagne glass, and what are the differences? So there's the flute, which most people are
and then
familiar
you're talking
with,
about
and then the it's called the coupe.
The coupe.
And
so I do know the history of the coupe, but I don't know why we use it. I'll tell that part, and then you can extrapolate.
Okay.
So
because of course he wants to tell this part.
There was a queen or a princess or a
Marie Antoinette.
Marie Antoinette, and supposedly that is the shape of her breast.
Specifically her left breast.
Her left breast. But
we got
it's very symmetrical. I have to, all the glasses I've seen are very symmetrical. I would assume that their boob probably wasn't quite that symmetrical, but maybe. Usually a boob has a little bit of weight.
Oh, I see what you mean. No,
like,
I would think that you would have to lean over the mold, and it would be like the hanging down, and then it was pushed up. So that would make a symmetrical
interesting
circumference kind of.
I hadn't even pictured the ergonomics or whatever. But anyway, that's supposedly where, that's when you see the big champagne pyramids, that's the glass they're using there. The rest of the time, the more common one is the flute, and then
which was invented later. So the reason being that the more surface area that the champagne or sparkling wine has, the faster it loses its bubbles. And the winemakers worked really hard to get those bubbles in there. And we'll at some point maybe talk about the winemaking details of making a bubbly wine. But so the last thing they wanted was to lose all of that. And so the coupe had been the mainstay, but then they designed the flute so that they could actually keep the bubbles in the glass. And that's also part of that fascination. I mean, how pretty is that?
Yeah.
But in the 30s, the coupe was very popular here in the United States as well. So this is like back in the 1700s that we're talking about. And it was still popular in, movies, and you still see people use them today. And the big deal with a flute,
it's more of a margarita glass these days.
Kinda.
With cactuses on it.
But the main point is that, even with the coupe, even though I feel like one of the main images in everybody's head is the Leonardo DiCaprio version of The Great Gatsby, and he's holding the coupe glass, in the palm of his hand, which of course is warming the wine, which is not the idea.
No, like we've said before.
Yeah. So that's kind of, whatever. It's the movies. Go along with it. But so that's where that comes from. And so if you want to be like an old king and queen, drink out of the coupe. If you want to maintain those bubbles and the integrity from what the winemaker wanted you to experience, drink it out of a flute.
Yeah.
All right, the next question is... Maybe I'll come back to that. All right, the next question is, what... He needs a little more wine, maybe.
Oh, shit.
What?
I mean, oh, darn. Jeez, I got to catch up. What am I doing around here?
So what pairs best with living in a dystopian nightmare? Now, this has been circling as a meme kind of thing on social media, and I had like 19 of you send it to me personally, so I feel like you guys really want to know. And I feel like it's not necessarily a pairing with this insanity that we're living as far as one particular wine for the entire experience, but maybe specific elements of it require different wines or different times of the day.
That's where I was going to go with it, actually.
Right? Like, I could have used a real strong, hardcore cab this morning when I was really agitated. I needed, like, something to combat my mood. But then as the day got better, you know, I was feeling more like rosé in the afternoon, and then, of course, now we're drinking cab again. But, you know, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, all right, so you want to start light, and, you know,
usually
whenever you hold off as long as you can. Then you start light.
So by 8 o'clock
a.m.
Yeah.
You don't wake up at 8 a.m. Come on now.
If I did, maybe I would. If there was a bottle of bubbly open and waiting for me.
All right, check this one out. All right, so somebody too also said, why are you not allowed to drink? I think it was a comedian. Why are you not allowed to drink first thing, but you can drink at noon? It's the same thing. And to me, I immediately thought, some people wake up at 11:30 and they're allowed to drink at noon. So if you wake up at 7:30, shouldn't you be allowed to drink at 8? Like, if they're allowed to drink half hour after waking up, they're going to stay up as much as you are, probably, you know, like, generally.
Well, brunch is a thing.
Brunch is a thing, but just once a week. That's once a week, Great Gatsby. No, but so you want to start with a lighter flavor to slowly go to heavier flavor, and then when you're
that way your palate isn't, you know,
you can taste each wine supposedly, and then you take your nap and you start over when you wake up from your nap.
I totally agree, especially if you start to drink reds, your palate gets super fatigued. And so then you really do need to switch over to the best palate cleanser is actually a bubbly. But if you have a high acid white, our dry Riesling is a great example. That can actually really shift your palate, enliven.
Yeah, but yeah.
At this point, I don't even know what words I'm using.
Right.
But wake your palate back up, and then you can dive back into your reds. You know, if you just want to drink really heavily, like the British.
Or like the British. Yep. And they were drinking, like, by the way, it wasn't this 14, 15, 16% alcohol that we're drinking sometimes these days. Their wines back then were probably 10 to 12%. So 2 gallons a day, you could take that with a grain of salt. They might have been mixing it with stuff to, like, tamp it down to 6% or 8% sometimes. Who knows?
Hey, Dr. Luke, was that 2 gallons a day?
2 gallons
keeps
a
the
day.
doctor away?
Yeah.
That's what you meant, right?
That is what he meant.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they didn't even know what psoriasis of the liver was back then. So I think it's fine. If it was that big a problem, they would have known.
Oh, well, this is going to be one for the books. Let's roll out our next question. Bum.
Oh no, what?
All right. I did say, ask us anything, and we will answer it. And
You've got me scared enough. What?
I'm just trying to make sure that our audience, some of you will think this is hilarious and awesome and not blink an eye. Some of you might be slightly offended by the content.
Oh no.
Try to stick with us. We do have other livelier, fun, PG kind of questions too. Okay.
All right,
so
spit it out already.
all right. Are there any wines that improve the taste of your partner's the way that pineapple supposedly does?
Oh, I didn't even know about the pineapple part.
I didn't either. But I have also, now this is going to sound really bad. I had to do some research, but not in the way that you're thinking I did research. Okay?
Boo. Boo.
I knew that surprising him with this was probably going to be worse for me than it would be for him. But, so evidently, which I did not know this, I didn't know the pineapple thing, but something with sugar supposedly does some kind of flavor shift.
Interesting.
So in that case, then I would, select a fruitier kind of wine. And so from our portfolio, I guess I would go with our rosé of Cabernet.
Ooh.
Great candied flavors.
And then I was going to go with, playing off the, pseudo semi-salty aspect. They can have it. I was going to go with like a higher acid, so the rosé would probably work really, elegantly that way.
Right? I was like, do I put this in or not? I don't know. And then, I want to encourage you guys to ask whatever questions you have. And boy, this is a dynamite one because, has anybody really thought about that? Well, maybe some people.
Also, it's going to depend on, all right,
what has that person had to eat? What about that?
There's body chemistry involved, just like there is in your palate. Like some people's palates, some people don't like tannins because their chemistry doesn't work with high tannins, or some people don't like high acid wine because their body's already salivating too much, or some people don't, or things like that. I would assume that the same goes for your partner's specific chemistry in the nether regions, so maybe, maybe, and your particular preference or dispreference for flavor profiles of the nether regions. Maybe are you trying to cover up tastes, or are you trying to complement tastes? Are you trying to
that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I would say if you're trying to cover up a taste.
And then are you stopping midway to take a sip and then go back, or are you
I believe this is at the end when you're swallowing.
Oh, okay.
But that's how it would work.
Uh-huh.
On one side, so to speak.
Well, 50% of us would be thinking that way, and the other 50% would be thinking the other way.
Okay,
maybe.
so if you're thinking like you need something bold to cover up a flavor, I would definitely recommend an Amarone, which is very high in its sugar content because it's raisined fruit. But then also
for a dry wine, though.
Yeah, it's not a sweet wine. It's a dry wine. But it is...
But if you dig on sweet wines, sweet wine's going to kill that right away, I would think. Like a good port. Jeez. Yeah. Can you imagine?
Well, now I am. Shoot,
seems like we're interested in this subject and we never thought of it before. We're really going to town. This is like a 5-minute question answer here.
I thought you'd appreciate it.
Kudos to whoever it was that asked that question.
Yes, yeah. Hopefully she's watching. And if not, of course, we keep these videos on Facebook and then post them to YouTube as well. So,
Yeah.
All right. So we'll move on to a PG-13 question. That was fun though.
That was. Cheers.
I am impressed with how you handled that because I was like, this could be crazy. All right, so our final question for today is when traveling outside of the U.S. begins again.
I got a text saying definitely stop to take a sip. I'm not going to tell you who it was. That's awesome.
Well, if you're sipping wine through it, it might last longer. I don't know.
Maybe that's a good thing. Probably a good thing in most cases. All right, go ahead. Sorry, moving on.
Let me pour you some more wine, honey. Anyway, okay, so when traveling outside of the U.S. opens again and we are allowed to go somewhere, where is our next adventure / trip going to be? So I feel like we need to answer this in two ways. One, we were going to go to Peru. We were going to hike Machu Picchu. We had that planned for this fall, and clearly we are not going.
Nope.
But
no way.
hopefully we will be able to, in the next couple of years, do that trip. I also, I really loved some of the competitions I was invited to go to. One was in Berlin that was so fantastic, and another one was in Budapest.
She wants Europe again.
I know. Another one being in Portugal. If they fly me over and put me up, yeah.
There's still the other two of us that we have to pay, and then we have to pay European prices once we get there.
Well,
but
it's still cheaper than if you paid for 3.
And not going on vacation for a couple years gives us that much more time to save.
Exactly.
So we will have more money in theory, unless everything crashes, which is still a possibility.
Yeah. But so I would really love when everything passes on to a new way of traveling and being allowed to. I would just be so honored to be invited back to those places, and I want to go back so badly. I loved my experience.
Yeah.
And then there's the reality of, well, do you want to just go travel? And so if we end up with any border lessening, then I think we need to go into Mexico, we need to go into Canada. I don't know that anybody's going to allow Americans to travel for a very long time, but we would love to
and rightfully so, by the way.
Oh, gosh.
Why would you let us in there?
But, we've talked about spending some time in Canada. It'd be great to do that. Also, exploring the very southern part of Mexico. Our sister-in-law is from central Mexico, so we've had the incredible opportunity to get to know some of that area through her and her family, and it's so incredibly gorgeous.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot to explore that you can drive to when we're allowed to drive out of the state. So that's fun. All right. So anything that you wanted to share about the traveling thing? I feel like I kind of robbed you of the answer.
Oh God, and I love traveling. It's hard for me to stay away from South America. I just, South America's really got my heart, and I really want to go back there.
Which is where he really fell in love with wine during his study abroad in Chile. So you can kind of see how that. And I'd like to go there too. I haven't been.
Right. You did spend 2 months in South America though.
But
yeah, Colombia is different than Chile. Yeah, exactly. So obviously Chile, Argentina, Brazil's been calling me for my whole life.
My whole life.
I got deported from Brazil one time.
That's another story.
Crazy.
All right, we gotta wrap this up a little bit, but thank you guys for tuning in. Next week we are going to focus on Pinot Noir, which is going to be the new release that we have. This new Pinot Noir is breathtaking.
Yeah, we're excited.
So we're actually going to taste 4 different Pinot Noirs.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Yikes.
And we have a guest. So we're going to try to figure this out. But the Pinots are going to be all about price point, and we're going to talk about price point and how do we price wines and the difference between different price points. So I think it's going to be really fascinating for a lot of people. And please write in any questions you have about specifics of price point. It'll be more about price point than Pinot, actually. Yeah. Pinot just happens to be the grape, but so it's about how to buy wines and what to expect from different price points. Exactly. And and again, so you can see we really do answer whatever questions you send in. So if you got anything for us next week, let us know. We also have a very special guest. Yeah. This is Senior Master, I must correct, Jordan Schreiber, who is a 7th degree black belt, and in then what? In Taekwondo. Okay. And then has the incredible title of a Senior Master, which it's like the most badass. But why are we having him on? We're not having him on because of that.
we're going to talk all about Taekwondo. No, we are actually having him on because not only is he a badass in the martial arts world, but he was a Rhodes Scholar with his PhD in political science. He was top of his class in undergrad at Harvard and then again at Harvard Law. He then chose to, instead of becoming a rich lawyer like he could have, be a public defender in San Francisco for many years. He is phenomenal, the smartest person I think we know on the planet. And
it wasn't Harvard Law. It was it Harvard Law?
Yeah.
Where did he do? Oh, he has
the Rhodes Scholar was at
for
Oxford.
Oxford for his PhD. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And so all Rhodes Scholars go to Oxford in England. And so just a phenomenally brilliant person who's going to delve into some of the biggest topics of our day: masks and police and
all the hot button
upcoming
topics.
Election. So he's going to give us the law background that most of us are missing. Already having a phone conversation with him and just going over some of the little things, the little details, I was blown away by some of the stuff that we really don't know as the general public.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very exciting, and definitely, if you want to send in some extra questions, you can. We're going to try to make this as comfortable as some hot topics can be. So thank you so much. We'll see you next week, and hopefully you guys try out some wines with your evening activities.
Experiment, guys. Cheers.